Now that we've got a button and we can reach out towards it, why don't we add the functionality where we can actually press the button. So it's done in a very similar way as we did with the self input. Difference being is that we will add another type of input which will listen to our mouse clicks, and if that mouse click happens we'll have the hand move into a pressed position. So let's add another game object, and we'll call this one button input, because we're going to put on the button input component. You can actually call this left click or something like that if that makes more sense to you. So in the button input we get to choose what button we're going to press, and these are just the default ones that come with Unity. We can actually change these to whatever we want to, and file 1 by default is the left mouse button or the control key on the keyboard or the A button on an Xbox controller and so forth. So we'll just leave it as file 1, and then we have the option of which hand we want to use. We want to keep using the left hand, obviously. We'll leave the move speeds at default, and once again we've got the option of where we want the hand to move to when we press this file 1 button. So we can grab this ready position and we can duplicate it, and we can call this pressed position, and we'll give it a different icon, and maybe we'll just move it forward a bit just so it's easier to see that there's a ready position and a press position. And then we'll go back into our button input component and we'll move the pressed position transform into this move rotate field. So it's very similar to the self input. So the self input, when that's enabled automatically, it moves the hand to the ready position, and the button input moves the hand from the ready position to the press position. And why don't we use the thumb animation so we can press the button with our left thumb. So we'll go thumb left as the animation. So anything that's set up in this section happens when the button is pressed down or held down. And then we've got the opposite section here, which is what happens when the button is released. And so we want when we release the button, we want it to go back to the ready position. So the hand moves back and forth from the ready position as we click and let go of the button. And we want the animation to return back to the default as well. So now we just need to put this button input component into the input handler, just like we did with the self-activated input. So we can just grab that and drag and drop it into the KINERACTIVE inputs, and now it's going to check for both of those at the same time. So let's press play and see how it looks. So if we look at the button, our hand moves from our knee to the ready position. If we left click, our hand moves from the ready position to the press position, and then if we let go, it goes back to the ready position. If we look away, it goes back to the knee. So there's 3 sort of positions it moves between in now, and obviously the press position is completely wrong, so we can adjust that to make that look nicer. So we'll grab this pressed position transform, and probably want to rotate that completely, maybe a bit that way, and a bit closer and a bit higher. Let's see, it's looking better. It's a little bit too high, so I'll move that down a little bit. Still a bit high. Perfect. There's actually a better way to do this rather than trial and error, but I just don't want to bog the tutorial down with some extra bits and pieces, so I'll make a separate video for how to do that. So once again, we're going to copy the component position while we're in play mode now that we've moved it. Then we hop out of play mode and paste that back in. And that's moved to how we had it adjusted and rotated it. So let's double check that that's working as we want it to. So it's not quite there yet, as I can see up the top view. The thumb isn't actually touching the button, so let's move that just a little bit closer. That's much better.